wish for you a fine, bright world to grow up in, and a future for you to believe in. But you'll need a name to be known by, and I can't think of any name better than your father's. So, Bray, my little son, welcome to the world.
Welcome to Series 4, Episode 3 of Conversations on Eagle Mountain, a podcast about the tribe. I'm your host, Lance, and joining the podcast panel today is Liz.
Hello.
Sabine.
Hi.
And Tamsin.
Hello.
With episode notes done by Matt and myself. So Series 4, Episode 3, the screenplay was done by Tony Osborne. It was directed by Julian McSweeney. And the episode synopsis read out by Liz.
Amber and Trudy planned their next move. While in the city, the tribe leaders meet to lick their wounds, and Techno VED pushes the boundaries.
So yeah, just before we start, because obviously viewers wouldn't have really heard what we were talking about just before, but I actually enjoyed this episode.
Yes. Yeah, Tony and Julian did a very good job this time around.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely felt like it picked up on all the criticisms we labelled at the first two episodes. So like people had different viewpoints and disagreements, and it just felt a bit more organic, I guess.
Production value, the lighting, the sound design, the script, the way they took their shots, the groupings of people, the geography. It is very clear and linear. We understand where we are, who we're dealing with. The conflicts have a flow to them, the emotional states of people. It's solid and incredibly well paced and actually emotional at times.
Mm-hmm.
Like they nailed this one.
And we needed that.
You did.
Yes.
I was just going to say, I like the fact that we're starting to get the technos fleshed out and that not everything is as perfect as we would initially think. They're not the unified, cohesive group that they look like on the outside. And I like that.
There's actual subtlety in this.
Yeah, agreed.
Like it actually challenges the audience to use their brains and think about the characters, their motivations, their internal struggle, what they're thinking about. And I even found a scene with symbolism. I was floored. Like, what? Is that a metaphor? You've got to be kidding me. Parallels, I can't believe it. Storytelling in this episode is great.
I'd also add something that we all felt in the last two episodes was that it felt empty, was that we were more interested in spending time away from the mole rats than we were with the mole rats. I didn't feel that this time. I felt 50-50. I was engaged with the technos. I was engaged with the mole rats.
Yes, 100% engagement.
Something that I really didn't notice before today was that in these 3 episodes, and then specifically this episode, we're already getting to know more about the separate characters within the technos than we ever did for most members of the Chosen.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
As annoying as it is for me to say this, but
do you think that goes back to something we talked about way back in episode 1 of this new season? Was that they just, with the costumes, because they had to have those chosen robes, and it meant that there were less chosen as a result. Do you think it might be something to do with that?
Not sure about that.
I don't know. I think it's more that the cult itself was meant to be such a mysterious entity, and you're only supposed to get hints as to why anyone would be a part of it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter why anyone would be a part of it. Like that, they explore that through our mole rats, trying to decide whether they should join or not. But at the end of the day, they're more of like almost an evil presence, it's like a monster, they just need to be stopped. They don't need to be dissected, We just get to explore the weak points in it, and that's from the top down. And so I think that's probably why we didn't spend. I mean, I would have preferred, and I think the story would have benefited for it. But maybe that's why, where the Technos are not a mysterious entity, and from the get-go, they seem to want the focus to be less on what the Techno machinations are and what the Technos are and what they do, but more on just the people who happen to be Technos. Like, it seems like they wanted the Technos to be more character-based than they wanted the Chosen to be.
Yeah.
Because they're already giving Jay more of a personality than they gave Luke for half a season.
I don't think that's fair.
At least the first part of Luke's, season. It took quite a while for them to give them, to give him a little bit more depth.
Again, there may have been a reason for that, but again, we're still only in episode 3.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be too effusive with my praise, because I think these good episodes are going to be pretty spotty, and then it's going to start lacking consistency in their characterization. So I don't want to immediately say, well, they did it better fleshing out the characters with the Technos than they did with the Chosen, because in 10 episodes we may be feeling completely different about that. All I can say is in this episode they did a good job.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to go back on what you guys were just talking about before, I think one of the reasons why the Technos are being so fleshed out, we can't forget, is because we've lost a huge amount of core cast as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They got the time and the room
that makes
for
a big
them.
difference.
Yeah.
I've got to find Tyson and Sal. I've got to.
Lex, you can't even move. You gotta stay still.
She's gone, Sal.
What do you mean?
She's not in here anymore.
And this is soon followed by Ellie wanting to storm off to the farm in the faint hope of finding Alice. And it ends in a fierce argument between both herself and Jack as he wants to leave, since there is no one left and no one for him to remain for. So yeah, as we were just mentioning, so the writers kind of have been pummeling at us the knowledge that all the old characters in the show is gone. But what do you kind of make of this moment between Lex and then Ellie and Jack?
I think both of these are excellent moments, beautiful illustrations of grief in the different forms it can take. And I'm actually really glad that we're getting grief from several characters in different forms. And it actually seems fitting that this is the episode where the grief is setting in. The reality is setting in. And everybody's feeling it their own way. We shouldn't be surprised to see Lex feeling it. Lex has always been on the grief train. He's the one go-to character you can always say does grief. They like it. They love it on him. And he really tends to feel it. But I was just really pleasantly surprised to see the theme of grief in other characters and seeing how they're dealing with it and the way they act on that grief, what stage they might be in. That moment with Lex and Salene was very poignant. I like that was the words Lex had to describe. She's no longer here. And he presses his chest, and that was kind of deep for Lex, She, of all the women, there was just something about Tyson who got under his skin, and he can't feel her anymore. It's a profound loss he doesn't have words for, and it carries through the whole episode. And the actor, he does such a fantastic job. And I love the scene with Ellie and Jack. I love her franticness, her denial. She's manic, and Jack has no choice but to follow her to save her from herself. It was very reminiscent of Alice doing the same thing with Tyson. I have to chase you down because you're going to get yourself killed. But it's clear that Ellie doesn't actually have control over her actions right now. Her head is spinning with this desperation to be reconnected. She is looking for her tether. She's lost all of them. Now, Jack is right there, and she does appreciate him, which is why she has such an explosive reaction to him saying, I don't know if I want to go back, Ellie. That is why she explodes. He is her last tether. He is the last person she has. And this was a confrontation the two of them were desperately needing to have, because neither of them have had the chance. Ellie hasn't had a chance to deal with her abandonment issues. It wasn't Jack's fault he was taken by the Technos. By the Chosen. But she still felt abandoned, and even some resentment that he was taken from him. And it was misplaced onto him. And that's not fair, but that happens all the time. And then Jack never got to express the grief of coming home to nothing. You know what I mean? And being angry about that. They were both trying to be so mature about it that they didn't get to throw the tantrums they so desperately needed to throw. And so I was glad they have this moment to just shout at each other and express that, you know, I've been trying to be cool about everything that's happened to me, but I'm not cool about it, you know, and they can do that with each other. They're both a safe space to have that out and scream these things. And then, of course, make up the way they do. So I thought both of them were brilliant scenes.
It really illustrated the strength of the connection between Jack and Ellie. And I completely agree.
Yeah, I think on Jack and Ellie, there's just not much more to say than this. This is what they needed, and it felt real.
Mm.
I have to add, though, I'm thrilled that they didn't pretend that Pride was sad over May.
Well, this was a very honest episode. I was blown away by the honesty being portrayed in all these characters.
Although I will say one thing, which is where Pride said that he made... He kind of...
All right.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
We're going to get to Pride's outpouring of honesty. Yeah, don't worry.
Going back to the Lex Tyson thing, though, I also think it illustrates that Lex is a pragmatist, and this is part of his survival mechanism, I would say. Does anyone else sort of agree, or...?
Yeah, but you can also see there's a struggle, like, to get up and keep moving and accept this dark truth and run from it.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't like the Lex.
You didn't like it?
I didn't like it. I thought it was too on the nose. I thought it was a little bit too. Yeah, she's not here anymore. She's not in my heart. She's gone. Who's the next one coming along? You know what I mean? It did felt a bit. it did have that kind of feel to it for me anyway. But
I'm wondering, is that the feeling you got because you know how quickly he moves on?
No, not even that. Like, this is episode 3. Oh, she's not in my heart anymore. Like, what? How would she not be in your heart anymore?
I don't. But that's you taking it completely literally, and I don't think it's meant to be taken literally.
To me, it felt like something Tyson would have said. You know, it's but she would have been like,
she's been taken. She's been taken from him for like what, 24 hours, 48.
Yeah.
Like,
no, but
and you can't feel her in your heart anymore. Like, nah.
Well, that's why I said I don't think he has the words to describe this emptiness and realization that he, like, when she was with the Chosen, he knew who she was. It was a matter of just getting to her. Yeah. He still struggled with that, but this is an unknown. I have no idea where she is. I have no idea what's happened to her, and I have this yawning fear that I won't get her back. I am not going to find her, and that's what I'm feeling.
But she'll still be in your heart. You still feel her. And you know, I can't even feel her. Like, no, Alex, shut up.
I don't think that's what he meant, but that's not what I got from it.
I can't even feel her. Like,
no. I mean, there is another way to look at that, though, isn't there?
To me, it felt like he meant like she's not around anymore. Like,
well,
see, I would have liked that, but the way it was positioned and him doing it with his heart is like, nah. It was like, I can't feel it at all in my heart. Like, shut up. Sorry. It annoyed me. It really did.
For me, it just kind of felt like Lex was basically accepting that she was gone forever, just like Zandra was. It's like she's dead to him.
Yeah, well, there's that other side of that, isn't there? Where he could be saying, I can't feel her anymore. As in, I don't think she's here anywhere. Yeah. There's that other side of it, isn't there? Because he doesn't know what's happened to her. And I think he, like Liz said, you know, he always knew where she was. He knew he could kind of get to her until he couldn't. And there was the awareness that she was alive in the world. But now he doesn't know where she is, and he's lost that tether to her.
But he had his chance. He could have gotten in the truck.
That's true. Yeah. He could have.
Yeah, that's the only weakness of this episode. This is very strong, but when you think of the episode that came before it, you're just like, as you said, you had the chance. If this is how you feel, you know, like so empty and so desperate to get to her, literally last episode, they provided an opportunity and none of you had questions about that opportunity. You know what I mean? So that's the only downside for me in this episode is that, and then I think it will carry on throughout the season, is, you know, setting up stages where, you know, you'll have one episode where the characters are just not as well written, plot, the storytelling, everything. And then you'll have a really poignant one and it's just like, would work so much better if that other crappy episode didn't exist, you know?
And I guess the other thing is that you don't have any expression of regret that they didn't do it. Like, I understand Lex's position. He's essentially been knocked out. He's just come to, and he's groggy. He's not feeling it. But I don't know. I just feel with Ellie, you might have a feeling of regret. Like, maybe I should have got in the truck. Maybe I should have gone. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I thought about that too. When we were watching that episode, I was like, that's the other, like in my brain, I was like, not only do they not have a discussion about that truck, they don't ask any questions, nobody makes a move for it. This doesn't come up again.
No.
You know, there's no explosive moment where someone blames Ebony, you know, like I could have gotten in that truck, you know what I mean? Or something. Like it just doesn't come back. It's just some random thing Jay said and had no meaning and really does feel like it was probably a lie, but they don't use it. And they did nothing with it in the moment anyway. So, but again, that's just a badly written episode. So,
but I mean, I do agree though. It does feel like the writers are definitely trying to put across these characters are gone. They're not coming back. People are starting to move on. Even Lex, he's come out of his, 24-hour coma, whatever it was. And even he's starting to think, oh, well,
Bray still holds the record.
Oh.
Yeah, he does.
You've seen these Techno's Pride. They can take us out at any time they want. We have to outthink them or get wiped out, so help me to do it.
Oh, that what this is about? Or is it that your little house of cards is falling down? Tell me, Ebony, what does it feel like to know that if the strangers don't throw you in the dust, the city will?
I thought you were the one man who'd have a clear mind in all of this. But you're not even starting to think. What is it really? Oh, are you feeling guilty about two-timing May? Or is it that old amber-colored flame that just won't die down?
And he tells Cloe the truth. He never loved May and used her for company. Meanwhile, Ebony struggles to hold onto her power as Dee informs her that the tribe leaders have called a meeting, not just without her, but that they also want Ebony gone. So yeah, a few things within these scenes panel. What do you make of Pride's revelations to Cloe about May, his clash with Ebony, and how the city is quickly turning against Ebony?
Before we get into that, can I just say something? So something you mentioned in the group chat, Lance, was that Cloe has never met Pride before until now. And that was something I had completely forgotten. Because the way it's written, I felt like they knew each other really well. And then when you said that, I was like, wait, no, that's right, because she was gone when he turned up. And then, no, they don't know each other at all.
I mean, that's some crush, yeah. You should be the leader.
I just feel like it's Bray all over again. It's meant to show us just how Pride is going to have to fill Bray's footsteps for now, or at least make us believe that that's what's going to happen, because the girls instantly went for, oh, Bray, you should be leader in season 1. They're instantly falling over him without knowing him.
But it serves a purpose, and I think it has a lot to do with the theme of this episode. Our characters are lost. They're untethered. We are often kept in place by the people in our lives, and they form the structure in which they're our foundation. They help us form our sense of self and what place we have in the world. When we lose them, like let's just say you just lose one person. When you lose that tether, there's a lot of grasping you may do, because that part of the foundation is gone. And now the whole structure has to rebalance and find a way to balance without that corner of the foundation. These characters have lost more than just a few corners of their foundation. The middle of the floor literally just dropped out. They're all suspended in air, grasping and trying to figure out, like, where is my place? Cloe especially is lost. I think she's the best example of feeling lost and not knowing what role she's even meant to play in her family as it is now. It's completely reformed around her like a matrix, and everything is unrecognizable. She's just walking down empty hallways. Like, I don't remember this part of the building. Like, that's where she is emotionally and mentally. And like that moment at the table where she's watching Salene mother 2 more children is very, like, she doesn't look pleased, but she doesn't look jealous. she just looks almost disgusted. Like there's a confusion. That is not my role anymore. I am not Selene's little girl. I'm not looking for a mom. I'm not looking for that. But I'm also not one in the decision leaders of the older teens. Nobody's asking my opinion on anything. I don't play a role in anything. My companions who helped tether me, like Patsy and Casey, because they were all in that same age group, are gone. She is just floundering, looking for something to cling to. Here's Pride. He's handsome. He's nice. He seems sensible. She has a crush on him. Why wouldn't she latch on to him immediately? Like, please don't go. You know what I mean? Like, take over. Because I am desperate for something steady so I can reform the structure of my life and where I stand within it. You know, so it's not just a meaningless replay of, oh, he's Bray and all the girls want him to be the leader. There's actually a point to it in this episode that she would latch onto him the way she does. And even the scene later when he's telling her about May, look at her face. There is a confusion and a realization of putting someone on a pedestal that you barely know. And he's showing her a very human vulnerability. I'm not perfect. I'm actually kind of a dick. I did a really terrible thing and I feel guilty about it. But he's being so forthright with her. And it's in that moment, you can literally see her reshaping what a good man's supposed to be, you know? And I just think these scenes with Cloe, she's like your prime example of somebody who's like, how do I reform my life and who I am in it when everything has been torn away? And I'm just looking for something to grab onto, you know? But that's just how I saw it.
How do we feel about Pride's take on his relationship with May? Because I know we started this episode saying there was a lot of truth in this, but he actually lies because he said that he actually told May that he did love her. That's the thing. He didn't imply it. He actually told her with words that came out of his mouth twice. And yeah, I feel like this is the writers already deciding that they're going to rewrite that part of the history. So he didn't actually tell her. It's in a way, it feels like, you know, when Pride first turned up, and it was almost like him and Amber were engaged and that they were a couple. And that slowly, as time went on, the writers reduced their relationship to basically being friends and he's got a massive crush on her. And that's kind of what I start to feel is happening with May here. And I don't know whether I'm reading too much into it because as we said before with the Lex Dyson thing, I know what's happening next. But I don't know, how did you guys feel?
I felt that this was less the narrative trying to whitewash what Pride did and more on par with Salene. Okay, remember when Salene rewrote what happened between she and Bray when she was talking to Danny? And she was just like, you know, because Danny was like, so, I mean, were you? Were you a thing? Like, because, you know, she's like, Trudy thought the same thing about us, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, Danny's like, well, were you? And she's like, no, we weren't like that. That didn't feel like the narration trying to tell us that nothing happened between Salene and Pride. That felt more like Salene rewriting her own personal history because it makes her feel better. So this moment with Pride didn't feel so much like the narrative trying to convince me that you know, it was different than what it felt more like a personal character rewriting things just slightly. Like he admits, I allowed her to think I loved her, and that would happen if you told her you loved her. You know what I mean? That's not a lie. You did allow her to think you loved her because you told her you loved her.
Yep.
So it's not really a lie, but it is couched in a gentler way rather than saying I told her I loved her even then I didn't, which would have been very forthright and truthful. I think that felt very human. It felt more like a character kind of, you know, sanding down the rough edges while telling the truth, you know, rather than the narrative trying to gaslight me. I liked Ebony's sense of desperation as it's all falling away from her. And Dee, that's the only thing I'm a little confused about, and I will be for a while. I don't know if it's just force of habit that has Dee working with Ebony, but I did think it's strange that from this moment on, Dee has chosen to side with Ebony. I'm not saying like she agrees with everything Ebony does, but She definitely seems to, that's the team she's on. She's on Ebony's team. When she finds out important information, that's who she tells. She tells her anything people are saying about her. You know, I did think that was interesting. Like, when she first shows up to just tell her about the meeting, yeah, they sent Dee to tell her about the meeting. That makes sense. But from then on, despite how Ebony has treated Dee, Dee seems to have decided that she wants Ebony in on the know. And I'm just curious because they don't really give us a motivation as to why. I'm not saying it's wrong that that's what Dee has chosen to do. I've always been a little confused as to why she has chosen to side with Ebony, and when she finds out something important or whatever, wants to tell Ebony, hey, I'm just keeping you in the know. You know, they want you gone. Oh, I found this out or something. You know what I mean? I just think it's like interesting that that's the direction Dee went. And I just wish I knew why, because they don't give Dee a ton of motivation for quite some time.
To me, it always kind of made sense that she would. I mean, she followed Maz. Maz is gone. Even when the tribe leaders are there, Maz is nowhere to be found. And the closest thing to Maz he has is Ebony.
I suppose as well, you don't know how much Dee actually agreed with Ebony's policies when she was with Maz.
Yeah.
I mean, it could just be that Dee literally lost her entire tribe and got, the Mallrat, Jack and Ellie rescued her. And she's just sort of like, I don't have a home. I don't have a group. I really don't know who I should be hanging out with or who I should be talking to. Because it could just be something like that. Or like, oh, here's a powerful person or someone adjacent to it or someone who might watch my back or help me. So
that's like, at least Ebony is a bit like Maz was.
Yeah, it might be just habit. That's what I said. Maybe it's habit.
Yeah.
I wish I would have liked to have known a little bit more, but because there is as much as I like Dee, don't get me wrong, I like Dee, but I do think for quite some time she sort of flounders as a character with not a lot of internal motivation that's made clear to us. She just does things, and it's like, okay, but why? Why?
So we've sort of seen it from Dee's position, why she might support Ebony. Why do we think that Ebony has got so much animosity towards Dee? When Ebony's kind of on her own, she doesn't have any loyal captain. There's no Moz there anymore. I
don't think it's personal. Like I said, I think it's more just that desperation of like realizing everything's spiraling out of control and just taking out on anybody who is beneath her. She's very quick to, like, there are people she's more careful with, because they could provide a challenge for her. They could get people to rally around them. Dee is harmless, I think, in her eyes, and is a perfectly good vector to unleash her venom when she's not in a good mood because she's freaking out, because Dee just brought her information she didn't want to hear. I've been summoned to a meeting. Are you kidding me? Then it's like, Dee's like, don't shoot the messenger, dude. Like, but Dee's, she's an easy target,
Hey, Trudy, you're right. We should move off and get right away from here. Before we leave, though, there's something I'd like to do. Will you help me? Of course.
Amber asks Trudy to help her perform a ceremony for her son, who she names after his father. So yeah, what did you make between the scenes of Amber and Trudy and the baby Bray naming ceremony?
Can I jump in with the baby naming ceremony? Because, look, I know that we don't have Bray anymore, and that's going to be sad. But the fact that the baby's called Bray, I know this is my headcanon. A lot of people won't agree, but I just think that baby should have been called Dal, because if Dal hadn't died that day, then they never would have hooked up that night.
And he wouldn't be born.
And Bray wouldn't exist. Exactly. He literally wouldn't exist. So he only exists because Dal died when he did, right? And I just feel like, let's throw Dal a bone and call the baby Dal. Now, I know that a lot of people would say, who is Dal? A lot of the new viewers, let's do some flashbacks, show the friendship between Amber and Dal. That or Damien. Dal or Damien. Not Bray.
Even Trudy seems to be wanting none of it, because he instantly changes the subject to okay, well, food.
I really like that scene between Trudy and Amber, and Trudy having no choice but to come clean because she can't get Amber away from the danger. Trudy is carrying a lot on her plate. She is metaphorically completely having to carry Amber. Amber is in no fit state. She's just given birth in terrible conditions. There's been no food. Maybe Trudy's been able to bring them water. She's got a toddler to feed. This is a desperate situation. She also is fully aware that the city has been invaded. She has no idea if going back to the mall would be safe. She doesn't know where her friends are. And she has got to keep three vulnerable people safe on her own, and has no supply. Once again, Trudy, what she pulls out of her arsenal is incredible. She'll be given no cards to work with, and she still will manage to win the poker game. She needs more credit. So this is a horrible situation she finds herself in, and is forced to finally tell Amber, look, this is why we have to go, because Bray isn't coming back, and letting herself finally break. And she tells her that. I actually got a little emotional. I thought the girls did a great job. Mm-hmm. This is a tragic moment for both of them. Trudy's finally allowing herself to feel it, to just cry. He's not coming back. And it's the double pain of losing someone she loves and having to tell another person she loves about the same loss, and knowing they're going to feel it even more. You know what I mean? Amber, in this moment, she was already reluctant to bring a child into the world, but at least she had Bray. He's like, we're going to do this together. She had that support, she wasn't, you know what I mean? He was going to be there with her. They were going to raise their baby together. And he's literally just been ripped from her at the worst time ever. It's like being an army wife and your man goes to war and he left you with a sprog in the oven and he dies in action. And you're just like, what the frick? What am I supposed to do now? It's just, I thought they did such a great job espousing how tragically sad that is, and the outpouring of grief as they comfort each other. And then I like that silent moment where it's clear, after the crying was over, there was just silence, quiet, coming to terms with this reality. And I thought Beth, the look on her face, their looks on their faces are so good. Beth just got that look that many of us get when you're just dealing with something inside and you're rallying yourself internally to deal with it. And then Trudy's just looking at her in anticipation. Are you going to be okay? Because I hate to break it to you, we got to go. You know what I mean? And then, yes, you're right. This is what we got to do. But I want to do one last thing in honor of the man I love. I'm not into naming kids after other people. That's just a me thing. But this is one of the few times I wasn't bothered by it. I actually like the fact that there's a point to why she names him after his father. This felt appropriate. I mean, if you're going to do it, I guess. No, I'm just saying that personally, I'm not in it. If I'm with somebody and they want to name our baby after them, I'm like, no, sorry. There's already one of you. We don't need another. I don't like it across the board, but I'm not going to judge people who do it, okay? And I just think, okay, fine.
I will.
This is one of those situations where if he's gone and it's the only thing you can give the child of the father that he has just lost, the only thing you can give him is his name. Fine. I'm okay with it. At least it felt like there was some meaning behind why she names her baby what she names him. There's at least that.
Yes, but I hate it. I'm sorry, I hate it. Absolutely hate it. I know Bray's gone. He's disappeared. We don't know if he's dead. Blah 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 blah. But it doesn't have that core meaning.
It's trying to make out that he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it felt more like a writer's thing than an emotional Amber thing, if you see what I mean. I don't think it worked for me anyway.
It feels as fatalistic as Lex with Typhon.
Well, I guess that makes sense for the world they live in. We've noticed that a lot about these characters over 3 seasons. They are quite fatalistic. That's not new. We can't blame that on the newer seasons. I mean, they've had that feeling since season 1 when someone would just be out of the mall for 6 hours and they were gone forever. They're never coming back. You know what I mean? So, I just think it's the mentality of living in a world where people can just poof out of existence just suddenly, and that's it. It could just be a survival mechanism for all of them. So, that's not new, them being this fatalistic and immediately giving up when people are gone,
That's true.
That's them.
But
it's going to be
I just hate the naming.
Though. For family gatherings, you've got Brady, you've got Bray Jr., you've got Bray Sr., you know? It's so confusing. What if Brady eventually has a child and goes, I'm going to name it after Uncle Bray? That's 3 Brays in one family.
Gotta catch 'em all.
I mean, granted, I agree that the writers probably felt like the name was much more profound than it is. You know what I mean? But again, it's not offensive. You know, it's not creative. It's not very imaginative. But I'm just saying, like, okay, I guess if you're gonna name your kid after someone, maybe it's okay to name it after someone who's just recently been departed from your life. Okay, fine. Again, I wouldn't do it.
I don't know. The most recent dead person is Ned.
But
so-
well, as far as these guys know, I don't know. I do feel like the name Bray had more. You know, it means something when you know who the person is. When you knew who Bray was, you know. But naming the baby Bray made the name feel, I don't know, redundant, kind of ordinary. I don't know. I was like, oh, I guess the name Bray isn't actually that cool when it's not attached to a character that I know. It's just attached to
there's that as well.
Yeah, so I'm just like, oh, you know what I mean? I just don't really care for the name anymore. It's just been recycled. But again, I'm just saying, it's not offensive that she names the baby after his father, who literally just disappeared from their life.
Yeah, exactly. Disappeared, not died.
But I'm just saying, I'd say this is not an offensive thing she's done. Even if it's like, okay, whatever, you know, there are worse things she could have called him, and there could have been worse reasons to call him Bray. It would have been really offensive. She called him Bray while Bray was still there. I would have been like, oh, for Pete's sake, use your imagination. This poor child.
That leads me on to the next thing, because headcanons now. What do we think if Bray had still been in the picture? What do we think they would have called that baby?
Dal.
If
Who
he
knows?
hadn't disappeared?
Maybe they would have called him Dal. You know what I mean? Who knows? But he's not. So
One
I'm
can
just
hope.
like, okay.
No, they would have called the poor thing Martin.
Oh no!
Oh, stop.
Really? No, we can't. No.
I hate that you're actually right. Sabine, you're actually right. They actually would have.
Yeah.
Well, remember, Trudy was almost going to call Brady Martina.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes, Martina.
Oh my god, it would have been Martin. Yep, it would have been absolutely
Yeah.
100%.
Bray saved that little girl, okay? Due to her mother's obsession and lack of being able to accept reality, Brady got an interesting name with an interesting kind of schizo backstory.
So-
you know what I mean?
So by vanishing, Bray saved baby Bray's name from being Martin?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. But some people are just sentimental like that. You know what I mean? Again, I wouldn't name my kid after anybody else. That's just me. I can't judge someone for liking that or feeling like they're honoring somebody by doing that, because that's very freaking common that people do it all the time. How many people have juniors in their families? It's the second or the
None.
freaking third. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not out of the ordinary that she named the baby after his father. It's just kind of lacking creativity, and you know, the name loses some of its potency. Now that it belongs to this little squealing bag of flesh. You know, it's like, okay, who's not going to have a personality for a really ever. He's never going to have a personality.
No.
Not as long as the show's on the air.
He's doomed.
To be honest, with Bray and Amber as his parents, was he ever going to have a personality? They are two huge figures. He's going to be one of those Nepo babies that becomes a chef and a photographer.
Leave
And
the baby alone. Oh my gosh.
Well, if we take the new tomorrow into account.
I'm not. We're not, Lance. So let's not even finish that thought. We're not
Okay.
taking it into account.
Let's swerve a little bit. Liz, are you aware of what happens? I have to ask this. Are you aware of what happens with the whole baby Bray thing in the books?
Absolutely not. I've not read
Okay.
the books.
Damn it! I can't.
That's a torture that's in my future.
I can't mention it.
Tell
All right,
her now.
fine.
I mean, wait.
Wait.
I'm gonna take a guess. Maybe I've heard something through the grapevine. Did she change the baby's name to Jay?
Yes.
Anyway, I am here to say it is okay that Amber named her baby after his potentially dead father. Okay? That's all I'm saying.
And the
And
other
then
one?
her dead ex.
I'm not going there yet. God damn it, you guys!
I made sure you knew. Right? Okay, it's fine.
Look, I'm enjoying this episode, and they're determined to take that little bit of joy I'm eking out of this season.
I'm just saying, Amber has some problems. Let's just confront it. Amber has some problems, namely after your dead missing current boyfriend and then your dead ex. Like, come on.
So what we need to do is get her a baby book. There are other names out there, Amber.
So yeah, the naming ceremony is fine. I understand. I actually kind of like, the moment. Amber just needs this moment to say goodbye, to move forward, accept her new reality, christen the baby. That's interesting because that's the closest I think we've come to any kind of conventional religious practice, in the show. And so that was actually kind of interesting. Didn't care for the score. It was the only place I didn't like the score, but I guess I just don't like that lullaby thing. I just don't care for it too much. But it adds just importance on this baby that he hasn't earned, doesn't deserve, and doesn't really mean anything in this world yet. So, but whatever. The girls are doing a great job. Their acting was superb, and I actually felt their grief and got a little emotional as they both broke down and just comforted each other. I also think it does a good job of setting the stage, which again, kudos to Trudy, what she's carrying here. She lets Amber have her moment and then immediately has to get back on track. She can't wallow in the moment. You know what I mean? She can't sit here and be sentimental because we all have to eat. Amber, you already are looking very weak. We need food. So her changing the subject immediately is that's Trudy's brain constantly on task, and it sets the stage for her having to basically drag Amber through, what she's going through to try and get all of them to safety and keep them all alive. And again, she doesn't get enough credit for what she's working with. There's absolutely nothing.
I agree. I don't think Trudy ever gets enough credit from the writers. And yet, time and time again, she shows what a great character she is.
Meanwhile, a clearly intelligent Ved hacks into Ram's personal program as he trains in VR with avatars of both Java and Siva.
You hacking Ram's personal program? Come on, Ved. Man. Imagine taking one of those girls. Or maybe even both of them together. Forget it, man. They're Ram's property.
And Ved's rebellious streak continues as he later sneaks out to a bar in the city and takes pleasure in terrorizing the city folk, including Dee, and explains the concepts of virts. So yeah, a few things in here, panel. What did you make of the knowledge that Ved is actually quite intelligent, tempered by his rebellious streak, the concept of virts, and the whole property scenario of the twin sisters?
Okay, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but you know me, I give credit where credit is due. These are some of the best scenes we've been given in this season so far. These are
hard to agree.
Brilliantly written. The storytelling in these scenes it's impeccable. From the moment we see Jay at his computer and Ved comes in and he's completely dismissed by his brother, and you see this very subtle reaction from Ved of not being acknowledged. And he came in kind of eager, like Ram's awake, and he did that, and Jay's just like, yeah, whatever, and there's, from that moment on, you can see Ved's mood. So it was very affected by his brother's disregard for his very existence. You know what I mean? Like, that's subtle. That is subtle storytelling about Ved and Jay and their dynamic. And this is such good exposition, the way it was being dumped on us, but telling a story visually, and you guys know I hate the virtual reality. I think it's stupid, but I even think the watching Ram fighting the girls on his little computer program and stuff, even that has a point. Like, usually we've said the fight choreography is usually pretty bad, but this actually serves a purpose that it's bad, because it's literally Ram's fantasy of beating the crap out of the girls. So, like, there's a moment he's fighting both of them, and he grabs Siva's arm, and then Siva's avatar literally just freezes so he can deal with Java, even though in a real fight, nobody would just sit there and wait their turn. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'll let you deal with her. But it makes sense because it's Ram's fantasy where he's the best at the fight, and the girls are no challenge for him. You know what I mean? He's on his legs, he can do this. And so I even thought that choppiness and how bad the fight choreography to make him look good worked on a visual storytelling level. It tells me so much about his ego, you know what I mean, and how he values property. I thought this is the way you explain the relationship, and they already was showing us that's how Ram sees Java and Siva, and it comes back full circle in a metaphor. And I was like, holy crap, this is great. I don't have a single complaint about these scenes. I really don't. Like Ved, like again, his whole linear emotional march from being dismissed by his brother and then showing how intelligent he is, this need to act out, you know, and prove himself, the way he gets knocked down a peg by the people he wants to impress. It's really setting the stage for why he falls down the road he does with Ram, because Ram is literally the only person who values him and what he brings to the table. And all the way down to him putting a shock bracelet on Dee, calling her his property. And guess who stops him? It is the young women who know what it's like to be treated like freaking property. Like, oh my gosh, this came full circle. This is brilliant. Full stars across the board for these scenes. I love them.
And it was a great example, I would say, of show, don't tell. We saw the interpersonal relationships between these people. Like you said, it started off with Jay and Ved, and you saw the dynamics between the two brothers. And you saw the fact that Jay was trying to lay down the law to Ved as if he was as if he was his dad, and he was unsuccessful. And Ved was trying to show off to his two mates. And then Ved was trying to show off to Java, and he was being made a fool of. So that kind of led him to doing what he did later on to Dee. And that was really interesting. I like the fact, like you said, that the people who rescued Dee from that situation, which was only going to get more and more like it was going to get worse, you could tell, were Java and Siva, who not only are, like you say, property of Ram, but I also thought because it was them, it would have been so easy just to have Jay sweep in and rescue Dee. But it was the point that Jay thought that by telling his brother not to do it, he wasn't going to do it. So Jay probably didn't even know that this had even happened. It was just great character beats. I also like the scene between Ram and Jay when Ram says that thing about low-fat yogurt, and then Jay looks at him and Ram backs down. He changes. He starts looking at his hands. And I thought to myself, this is really good. Because at the end of the day, at this point, Jay is still the head of the army. And it's just really brilliant interplay. The sort of interplay that we haven't seen written this well since season 1, I would say. If you remember the days when it was Amber and Lex in the mall, and they were both fighting it out for a top dog position, and how Amber sort of manipulated Zandra and Ryan and all the other boys. That's what this sort of felt like. Really good character studies that you felt like these characters had been living with each other for quite a long time.
No, nothing else to add to that. It was brilliant. It was brilliant scenes.
I thought the scene, though, with Dee and Ved was absolutely chilling. And it shows what a psychopath he is.
And yet it wasn't out of nowhere, and it wasn't just, oh, he sucks as a character. We got to see the road all the way to how he got here, and how he is acting out, how he inflicts his own pain onto others, and his sadistic streak, you know?
Yeah.
And that's really the only difference between him and his brother and what they do. Jay doesn't seem to enjoy it. Again, he disregards these people as humans, just as Ved does, but he's not a sadist. He doesn't enjoy the pain of others. Where Ved, that's how he gets his value. That's how he validates himself, is by making others feel small. And yeah, it's very creepy, but again, it was purposeful. It wasn't just him throwing out some comment about harems and crap like that, enslaving women and using them. This served such a purpose, and it was chilling. And I love the fact that it's a full bar, but nobody wants to do anything, which is just a scenario you see all the time, you know, unfortunately. And there's nobody there to stand up for Dee. She is trapped. They can do whatever they want to her, and he clearly wants to. And even the way he's just so callous, like when Java comes in and he's like, what? She's my property. You know what I mean? Like, why can't I have property? and it's like her taking off and then putting him in his place. Like, I could do this to you. Did you forget that I may be someone's property, but who I belong to is higher than you, which makes me higher than you? You know what I mean? Like, it was just, great moment. There was a lot of just great facial expressions and nonverbal acting happening. And I was like, holy crap, this was good. This was so good.
And like I said before, what he did to Dee goes directly back to how his brother was treating him when we initially saw them. And I also thought it was really interesting that when Java took the bracelet off Dee, after that, and when she walks past her, she never once acknowledges her.
Nope.
She can't see her because she's just a vert. And I thought that it's not underscoring the fact that Java did this in solidarity to womankind. It was the fact that Ved was stepping outside of the box. She needed to get him back, get him under control, and to take that piece of tech off of this vert.
I mean, that leads us onto an interesting question. Like, do you think the concept of verts, the concept of the invading tribe, seeing other people as lesser, do you think it was needed with the technos?
I don't know if it's needed, but...
Well, it makes sense because they're so they've got the tech, haven't they? And they live a higher standard of life.
Every superior force has a way of justifying in their own minds why they should be superior and why it is okay to treat others a certain way. That's just humankind, our history. We make up things. We're very tribal in nature, and we other people. Sorry, we other those who are not a part of our tribe to justify treating them differently than we would our own tribe. This is just another form of it, but it's nothing we haven't seen before. In season 1, why was it okay to enslave kids? They weren't contributing to society. They were hungry on the street. We're helping them. You know what I mean? And this is necessary. But all they're doing is othering people less fortunate than them, people who haven't found a group, haven't found protection, and coming up with some reason why that's okay to do. So they slap some funky slang on it, but this is just human nature to do to justify why it's okay. First slavery because you're conquering these people. You won, and that's why you get to enslave them, because they're the losers. And then as time goes on, slavery has to take on a whole new definition. And like, for example, I'm speaking to the colonies here in America. At first, anyone could be a slave, but it was usually because you were working off a debt or you'd been a prisoner and you were shipped here.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, we need slaves, but it's getting muddy how equal we are online with slaves. They have a lot of rights and stuff. So now we're going to start to other it in a completely different way. And that's when skin color comes in. And it was just like, this is an easier way. You know what I mean? So it's like we're always inventing things in our humanity to other someone so that it's okay to treat them in a way that, value makes that helps us, it's advantageous to us. So we got to come up with a reason why it's okay. And that's all the technos are doing. They just have new words for it.
Yeah. They kind of viewed them as well as non-playable characters.
Yeah, that verbiage.
Which obviously, frightening as this is, it's actually crept into some people's, you sometimes see these things on TikTok where people are saying, oh, look at all these non-playable characters. It's like, they're real people, dude.
I also think it's a nice, again, you may not get this if you were a kid watching this, but it's something that will stay with you and you don't realize in your brain. As you get older, you'll start to recognize it. Remember, hatred takes many forms, and it simply reinvents itself with new terms. When it's no longer appropriate to use a certain term because it is associated with a hated group, a group of people who are full of hatred, people will take those same ideals and just slap a new bumper sticker on it. But it's the same ideals. It's the same kind of hatred and prejudice. And it just keeps coming round the bend. And if you're not careful, you won't recognize that it's the same demon that's been chasing us since the dawn of time. You know what I mean? You may not realize because they're using new words to describe their philosophy. But it's still couched in the same kind of hatred and prejudice and cruelty as any other group. They They have new hats, new t-shirts. You know what I mean? They call themselves something different. They try to disassociate from the other bad groups, but they have the same ideas. They want to do the same freaking things,
Arriving back at the mall, the tribe leaders argue over which tribes can actually work together to defend themselves.
You want Lex to lead you? Go help yourself. But please just take a look at what you're getting first. Okay, one Techno with one weapon nearly killed our Lexi just by pressing a button. As far as we know, each of their warriors carries the same weapon. But this is an enemy none of us have ever faced before. And even if you could agree among yourselves, which I doubt, okay, they'd mow you down like grass, each and every one of you, before you've got anywhere near them.
Lex calls for action to get their loved ones back, but Ebony disagrees. They have nothing to fight with. So yeah, how did you react to this meeting, Selene's intervention in order to help Ebony, and Ebony's speech which wins over the crowd?
This is the sort of thing I just need. When you're going to have characters do something or not do something, I just need a good scene where it is discussed and how they came to the decision they came to. This is a good example of it. Obviously, the city kids can't fight the Technos. The Technos are supposed to be in charge for a while, so they need to establish a status quo in which the kids do not fight. I like a scene that shows them having a discussion about it, wanting to, and being talked down with a valid reason. Now, are they going to milk this forever? Sure. It's an easy escape clause because it's not like Ebony has given a deadline or has a well thought out plan. It's just wait, we spy, we watch, but there's no actual talk about we get together, like this is how we organize, this is how we share information, blah, blah, blah. It's obviously just there so that the Technos can be in charge while the city is complacent in it. But at least it's a scene explaining how the characters came to the decisions they came to. Like, okay, at least I know why nobody's fighting them or whatever. You know what I mean? Like how they were convinced not to or stuff, so.
May I just say, Salene intervening like this? She was looking around that room with oh my goodness, I'm dealing with a bunch of toddlers. And getting that rattle out, I like the new Salene.
I thought it was appropriate.
I'm going to come out and say I hated that.
I thought it was appropriate. If they're going to act like children, they're going to act like wobbling toddlers, you need a baby toy to get their attention.
Yeah.
Ebony doesn't need your help, Salene. And I didn't appreciate that bit. I know, we're seeing the new Salene and everything, but I don't think she needed to she needed to have done that in this scene, I think.
I think it worked because it gave everybody something to do, and it told us everyone's point of view. Like, it's very clear to us, Lex wants action. Ebony doesn't, for various reasons, but she also wants to remain in control. We also see that Salene is tired of the BS, okay? This is not what she came home for, and this is what she's dealing with. And she isn't able to express her grief at coming home to nothing as well, She's done with it. So I think it does a good job of just illustrating where everyone's coming from, and it gave everyone something to do. Like, Salene is very clearly doesn't want to listen to these people screaming at each other. It's not getting them anywhere, and maybe Ebony didn't need her help. That's not the point. It's the point of just showing where Selene's headspace is, and this is not what she wants to tolerate, and it's setting up her future storyline for what kind of leader she would be. You know what I mean? Like, why she comes to that thought process and stuff like that. So, no, was it necessary? Did Ebony need her help? Probably not, but it still gave Salene something meaningful to do that was character-driven.
Something to do. I'm not sure about meaningful, but it gave her something to do.
I was going to say, it was nice to see her asserting herself, Salene. And I also thought the scene after this between Salene and Ebony, where Ebony essentially goes to Salene and is saying thank you. And
that was more meaningful.
Selene's basically saying, I
didn't do it for you.
But I thought it was interesting that Ebony thought that Salene was doing it to help her, when the obvious thing is that she was just trying to help everybody, and it just reminds you of what a megalomaniac Ebony is, and I love that for her.
I also think an important point about Salene is she doesn't actually express whose idea she even agrees with. For her, it's more that we're not going to get anywhere with you guys screaming at each other anyway. You know what I mean? Like, we're never going to come to any sort of plan if this is all you're going to do. Like, she never says Lex's idea is good and Ebony's is bad, or vice versa. Yeah. Even when Ebony comes to speak to her, I like that. We don't know what Salene would. She just says, like, we need a plan. Everybody needs to agree on one. Otherwise, this is pointless, wasting my time. And I just put 2 kids to bed. If you wake them up,
Wait, she does. She says, Ebony, we have to stick with you because you're all we got.
Yeah, but again, she doesn't show allegiance to either plan. Like whether we should go with Lex and attack everybody, like attack the Technos, or if we should sit back and wait. She is going for cooperation. We do need to be under a banner of some sort and work together. That's what I feel like where Selene's coming from.
Which makes sense for Selene.
Squabbling amongst ourselves isn't going to get us anywhere.
It kind of makes sense for her as well. I mean, she's seen that dividing which side you're on doesn't really get you anywhere except heartbroken and brainwashed.
I like the dead look in Caleb's eyes, especially since this comes right off the back of the conversation he had with Selene and that awful revelation he's just had for himself. And yet he still forces himself to get up and take action because it's, as I think Thompson said, it's his defense mechanism. It's how he survives. You know what I mean? Lex is supposed to be a man of action, even when they don't give him anything to do. And I like that even when he's talking and expressing different emotions, look at Caleb's eyes. It's not the dead eyes of an actor who doesn't want to be there. It's the hidden depth of what he's feeling inside, even though he's performing. You know what I mean? Like Lex has to get up. He has to do these things. And yet inside he's still very broken with this sense of emptiness at the loss of his wife, you know? And so I just thought that was a good bit of acting from Caleb. It wasn't the same. Like when Zandra died in season 2, what you saw in Lex's eyes a lot was the running, scared, traumatic eyes of like a wild animal trying to deal with that grief. You know what I mean? Like there was a chaotic energy in his eyes, sadness. Here it's matured to a whole different place. And I just thought that was good acting.
Is it me, or do they still not really know what to do with Lex? That's just how it feels. I think it just feels that way to me.
Well, the first thing, they need to give him a new outfit, because...
So true!
Poor Caleb. Poor Caleb.
I mean, at least they've gotten rid of that coat for a bit, so he can move his arms.
I don't know, bring the coat back. That shirt needs all the help it can get.
My favourite bit is the badge, where he's glued on stars. It's just... yeah.
I loved the lighting in the scene. The only thing for me personally that brings it down, which again, the whole episode suffers from that, is because what came before. Like, where were all these kids? You know, where were these city leaders? You know what I mean? Like, this is annoying that when you needed them, suddenly they exist again. That bugs me. I was glad to see them, but it's just like, it's so inconsistent and whether they exist or not, you know, and it's like when they should be there, they're not. And it's like, why? Why are they not here? And then out of nowhere, they show up again. And it's like, okay, they're still here. Why weren't they around? Why weren't they at the Techno compound? Like, if they're this angry, you know, they're squabbling and screaming. These are the kind of people that I would expect to be in the Techno base being shot down because they're, you know what I mean, trying to start something. Like, that's what we should have encountered, you know? So that's the only thing that brings it down for me.
I mean, that leads to the last thought. Like, why does Ebony's manage to win them over so quickly and easily? If they're so angry and riled up, did you like that she managed to calm them down so easily?
Nope.
Not really.
No, I didn't either.
They've lost everyone, all their loved ones, all their tribes, and you just managed to go, oh yeah, we're going to sit and wait and watch and spy.
And it wasn't even very good
did
speech.
It wasn't a great speech, actually.
Well, it was definitely... It was better than the speech in the last episode, but
That's true, but the bar for that is in hell.
Exactly.
True.
That calmed you down. That actually made you go, okay, yeah, we'll just go back home. Like, really? That solved it for you?
In a situation like that, you'd say, look, you don't know what you're talking about. You haven't lost anyone. You've got no skin in this game.
I was just going to say, I do think there should have been a little more, I get it. She's supposed to calm the crowd. Fine. I'm fine with that. Whatever. I do think there should have been a little bit of more discord among some of those tribe leaders. Because she makes a good point. Okay, what are we going to fight him with? And she points out the power of their ridiculous weapons. Okay, these weapons exist. And she's not wrong. Lex was taken out with just one. He nearly died. Okay? And for all we know, they all are equipped with these. So what is your plan to attack them? What are you going to use? What's the plan, right? That's a good argument to make. And I could see that quelling some of them, recognizing, okay, yeah, I'm angry, but what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to attack them? But I still think there'd be some hotheads in there who would not care. There'd be others who would be similar to Lex, who would be like, I don't care, we'll figure something out. And so I do think there should have been a little bit more discord there. And, but yeah. So I'm not thrilled that she was able to quell them so easily. It's not that she wasn't making a good argument, but I do feel like the conversation should have gone a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There should have been a little bit more pushback.
And the reality of a situation like that, as you said, is that the ones that aren't ready to sort of lie down and die and forget about their loved ones would basically meet behind the back of the bike sheds and be like, okay, so we're going to do this. It wouldn't go down the way it went down.
Yeah.
But I suppose, considering, okay, the things I can remember that do come, there are still pockets of people that aren't willing to wait. So maybe it was like, okay, I don't have an answer for her right now. And maybe, I'm not saying it's done well. I'm just trying to reason the story as a whole. Because we will see some of those same people meeting with Pride behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Because they weren't convinced that, having no plan but to wait around was the best way to go. They still wanted to take some sort of action, and they do. So, I mean, but yeah, I just think, a few more words would have perfected this scene. It's not terrible, though. And again, I just need to see the characters coming to a decision and at least understand why they came to the decision that we're not going to do anything. At least right away. We're not going to full out attack them. And I'm like, okay, it's believable. It's plausible for this moment. All right, fine. This is a better reaction than we've gotten so far to what's going on. But again, the bar is very low. So,
in the aftermath of this meeting, both Ellie and Lex call for Pride to go home, since he appears unable to be of any help to the cause.
But what are you doing here? You're not one of us. If you don't want to fight, you should just go home.
Yeah, go home.
Don't listen to them, Pride. You are one of us.
I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that. You didn't deserve it.
It's all right. I'm not one of you, Ellie. But if it's all the same to you, there's a few people I'd like to see back safe and well before I go.
So yeah, panel, as we've been mentioning, what do you make of Pride's kind of post-Bray leadership position and his reasons for remaining? And as we've now seen, Ebony, Salene and Pride are being pushed into the core central Morat positions now. What are your thoughts about that?
It does the job, I think, in having to move these characters into roles that they wouldn't have played before, and circumstances are now forcing. I don't think this is a terrible way of showing how those dynamics work when the group has to completely reform itself. I don't think it's unreasonable that this is how it would happen. Sometimes you stand up to take a position because there's nobody else, and sometimes you're being pushed by others to take that position. I think it's quite reminiscent of when the Mallrats first formed. Bray did not want a position of leader, but there were lots of reasons why others wanted him to take it, and how people end up where they end up and then take on that responsibility. I like the scene. I think it's very character driven, and it gives Pride his motivation. They need him to stay in the city, even though it doesn't really make sense for Pride to still be in the city. It hasn't for quite some time. And they were running thin on excuses to keep him here. This is kind of it's a little lame for a reason for him to stick around, but at least he has been given a reason to stick around. And we know Pride clearly doesn't need much reason to stay in a place that he hates and brings nothing to the table. So it's like, okay, fine, whatever.
But what is his reason?
So his reason is because he wants to know where Amber is.
Amber's gone. She's out of the city.
Yeah, but he's not ready to let go.
As far as he's aware. So who's he waiting to come back safe and well? Not me.
He does feel a responsibility to make.
Yeah.
It's not out of love.
He feels guilty.
He feels guilty. That's the only
Not
reason
enough to be leader.
I'm not saying he wants that. Like, he never says anything about that. Yeah, Chloe's like, you should stay, you should lead. Pride doesn't comment on that
for a reason to stay. That's
May's
not his reason to stay.
I'm not saying she's his reason. I think his guilt. I'm not even saying it's a good reason. I'm saying it's a plausible
I think it's
one.
guilt to more than one person.
Yeah, they needed him to stay.
They needed him to stay, yeah, but
it's fine. It's not the worst reason he's been given to stick around.
I don't know, guys. I think you're giving this a bit too much.
No,
Let's see.
I think it's not just his guilt over May. I think it's partially his guilt that he let Ebony kick Amber and Bray out, and he feels that he needs to do what Amber would have done, which is stay.
No, I don't feel that. I don't think he's thinking of being the honourable, brave standing at all. I don't feel that at all.
I don't even see the Bray comparison. I just feel like the situations are so different. So I don't personally see him being in the Bray role anyway. I think the biggest reason he's sticking around is because of Amber, wanting to know what happened to her, even though, granted, if that is his motivation, wouldn't it be better to go where you know she was dropped off and search that area? You know what I mean? But if you're convinced that she may have been taken, then I can at least understand the train of thought that would lead you to think sticking around here and checking out these technos is going to be your best bet to finding her. But again, Pride is not the brightest bulb in the box, so I'm just saying this is plausible for his stupidity and for the writers needing a reason for him to stick around. I'm not saying it's a great one, but they've never given Pride good reason to stick around. You know, this isn't the worst though. I'm like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. All right, this is, at least I know this is why he's staying. Okay,
I think
fine.
it's a pretty bad reason. I've got no, like, I can't give it any.
All of his reasons for
worth.
staying were bad. I'm just giving him credit. I'm just glad that I was given a reason. That's all I care about. I'm like, I told you, my bar is really low. Okay, I'm just looking for competency here. So at least
certain people are safe. That's not a reason. That's not a good enough reason.
Okay, fine.
That's not a motivation.
I know why he's here. Fine. Okay. That's all I need. That's all I need at this point. I'm like, season 3 destroyed me. Okay. All right. It destroyed me. I don't have standards anymore. So
this is the thing, okay, so we have to reflect this with the scene we saw before with Jack and Ellie. So we know why Jack is staying. We see that nuance between the two of them and why he is staying there. We know all the reasons why Jack is staying.
Yeah, but they actually had nuance.
Exactly. This Pride thing is, it feels flat in comparison when you look at the two situations. Like, why? No,
everything about Pride falls flat when he is no longer competition for Amber's love. That's literally the only reason he was invented. Do you get it? Do you get it? Lance, listen to me.
I know why he was there.
He was just a threat to their love.
But he's here now. We have to deal with him. So, like, write him a better reason.
Didn't think that far ahead. They didn't. Hey, I wouldn't be surprised if Pride was meant to leave, but then when they lost half the cast, they were like, we got to keep him. I would not be surprised if I found out that was a story. Like, there wasn't anything written for Pride. He probably wasn't supposed to stick around this long. You know what I mean? But he has floundered. And, like, I like, you know, maybe he was supposed to continue a love story with May or something. But then, like, half the cast goes, and you're like, we don't really need him. We don't know what to do with him. But we can't get rid of anybody else. Like, we're going to have to fit him in here somehow. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happened. Because you're right. They don't know what to do with Pride. They have no clue.
It's just so sad because, like, obviously we keep saying this over and over again. They don't know what to do with Lex. Like, you have two big male characters here. You don't know what to do with either of them. Like, how is that possible?
I think they were just more interested. I think they were more interested in the techno characters than they were with their originals. I think they lost a lot of interest in the Mallrats.
I'd also say with both of Lex and Pride, the rot set in season 3, because as Liz has eloquently said, they didn't know what to do with Pride once they'd introduced him. And I would say Lex starts off quite strong in season 3, but then basically becomes a side character to Ebony and Bray. And yeah, I don't think they've known what to do with him for quite a long time. So this is just, he's running on fumes.
Oh yeah,
they're running out of road for him.
It's a lot worse.
It just gets worse. But it's interesting that we're talking about the repositioning of the main Mallrat, and the names that are not being mentioned are Lex, for obvious reasons. He's been in like a day's coma, and he's got the Typhoon thing going on. Also, Jack and Ellie, I know they weren't there because they were at the farm still, because I think they spent the night at the farm, right? And they're not there, but it just feels like they're also not in the running to be leader either. And I just thought that's quite interesting. It's the characters that they don't mention. So that kind of leaves you essentially with Ebony, Salene, and Pride.
Yep.
And I thought it was quite interesting.
And keep in mind, Cloe is literally the only person who thought Pride should be leader. I mean, aside from season 3, May. And of course, this is being motivated by May. It was out of, I like him, I want him to stick around, I want some of that, you know what I mean? And for Cloe, again, she's a grasping kid coming of age, trying to find her place and trying to find something stable. Nobody else looks at Pride that way. None of them do, you know? But I do think, as a storytelling point, this is a good way to reposition the characters and show why others would be like, okay, I guess you might be the best candidate to head this show for various reasons.
All right, well, I mean, we'll come back to these 3 many times as we go along, but that leads us to our final thoughts of the episode.
What's this about, Dee?
I had a little trouble with the Technos, one vicious little creep in particular.
And
I fished this out of the little creep's pocket when he wasn't looking. I think it's one of their communicators. So, did I do good?
Sure you did, honey. You did real good.
So yeah, what do you make of Dee's resourcefulness here, her relationship with Ebony, as well as the twist that we learn at the end?
I really liked that we saw how resourceful Dee was, even though she had just gone from being tortured by Ved, that when she saw the opportunity to take the small white box, the communicator, she took it. I really liked that. I mean, Dee's turning out to be, in these three episodes along with Salene, a bit of a highlight, really. And I also, but the thing I was a bit confused at was this a setup from Ram? Did he sort of tell Ved to go there, get pickpocketed so that he could listen? And, like, did he know that Dee was going to go back to the mall? Like, that to me didn't make any sense at the end.
No, I don't.
I'm glad you brought it up.
I don't think in any way that Ram gave Ved those orders. But I do like the reveal that he's already messed with his equipment in such a way. Like, I don't think it's implausible that he hasn't already considered what would happen if their communicators got in the hands of others. He knows his people. He knows how they are. He knows what Ved's like. You know what I mean? And remember, what we're going to learn about Ram is that all of this is just a game to him. You know what I mean? Like, everything is just a game to be entertained for him. You know, he sees the whole world as NPCs. He's the main character. I do not believe that this was planned to have Ved go there and get pickpocketed. I just think it's a good reveal that this is where Ram's head always is. He spies on everyone. That's what I got out of it. He is spying on his own technos. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
If he's got his communicator set up to hear what people are saying and he's listening, he's spying on everybody. That's why he's smiling. He's amused that this is where one of his communicators ended up. You know what I mean?
Okay, I need someone to explain to me, what is this communication device?
I don't know, and I don't care. I'm not trying to make sense of this tech.
We have to make sense of all this tech that they're throwing at us. So, I mean, we know that they can communicate with their mics that they wear on their earpieces. So, what is this actual communication box? What?
I don't know, Lance. I don't know.
Without a button?
This is what makes me think Tamsin is kind of onto something. Because, like, was it a plant? Was this some kind of 3D chess that Ram was playing? Because
I think Ved had nothing. If it was Ram's 3D chess, Ved was not a player.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Unaware
Ved wouldn't know, but
I'm just saying
odd.
that I'm not going to try to make sense of this tech. I refuse. Okay, I refuse. All right, there is no sense to this tech. It is ridiculous. I'm not going there because I'll have nothing but negative things to say, and I don't want to ruin it for people who like it. Okay, you like the tech. I find it the stupidest thing ever. So I'm staying away from that conversation. I just okay, fine. It's a communicator. And this is how it's their version of the walkie-talkie. Okay, you know what I mean? And
but with one channel always open, always listening.
Exactly, apparently. And it's like that would be absolutely chaos for Ram to listen to if this thing just picks up what anybody ever says around it. Like, okay, nonsensical, but fine. This is how they communicate with each other. and there's a magic that only Ram knows. He can filter out what conversations he wants to listen to at any given time, just like there are cameras everywhere. Whatever, I just like the reveal that Ram spies on everyone, including his own techno.
Yeah.
And he's not mad when he finds out that some of his tech is fallen into the hands of virts. He's amused. Again, a good character beat, him. I'm sorry. The minute I start thinking about the tech, my head hurts and I get violent. And that's why I don't want to discuss the logic behind the tech.
I'm very sorry, but
I don't think you are, Lance. I think you're enjoying this. And I think you get disappointed every time I'm like, you know what? I don't think this is so bad. And he's like, oh, really? Really?
The thing, it is one of those things that we do need to touch on, because it was just so... I felt like we needed I totally agree with what you were saying, Liz, about the fact that he's listening to everybody and then it just happened to fall into Dee's hands and it went where it went. And that maybe there wasn't necessarily a plan to it. But it just felt like a bit more writing in that scene would have made it clearer as to what was actually going on without us having to kind of guess what was going on, if that makes sense. Because we've had to give motivations for everything that just happened in that scene. Because if you break down what happened, it seems like Ram is omniscient. He knows everything. And he was just preparing himself for this moment. And that can't be the truth, because the factor that he hasn't thought about is Dee. Who is Dee? She could have lived in a hole. She could be one of those feral street kids that just wanders around that we see occasionally. It's that for this to work, she has to take it back to somebody, or for it to get traded on. But it just, I don't know, for me, I just felt like we needed a bit more explanation around that whole scene.
But in a way, it actually kind of works, and I can't believe I'm saying this. Ugh. Okay, season 4 is written on the mystery box principle. Okay, I don't it's a J.J. Abrams kind of thing. J.J.'s never interested in answers. He just likes setting up mysteries, and that works for like TV shows because it keeps you coming back because you want to know the answer to the mystery. And I'm not saying that mystery boxes are inherently bad in writing. Okay, it's a good hook to set up these mysteries. And you want to know what the bigger picture is. It's kind of like, what was it, Tribe Master or whatever, who would like tell you things about the city, and you'd be like, who is this guy? Like, who is this person who knows all this stuff? And you're trying to put the clues together. Be like, oh, they heard this conversation between the Mallrats, so how could they have heard that, but also know what was going on over here, locos? You know what I mean? And at the end, it didn't matter. Tribe Master wasn't and could not have possibly been an actual person in the city. Blah blah blah. Okay. The problem with the mystery box, the problem with the technos, is that nobody thought about what was in the frickin' box.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this is one of those things that's set up that way. It intrigues you. You start asking questions. What was Ram? Did he have a plan? What was this? What was going on and stuff. In the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because Ram never really had a plan except to live in a coma for 1,000 years. Whatever. That was his plan. And you're like, wait. When you open the box and you find out that was the answer, you're very disappointed. You know what I mean? Because you're like, nothing led up to this. And so it's like, in a way, it kind of works that this is almost nonsensical because you're like, what was Ram's plan? It's like Ram didn't have one. He's just playing with everybody. That's all he does. He just plays with people and he finds it fun. And he looks for games everywhere. So it's like, oh, look at this. One of my communicators ended up in the hands of the vert. What am I going to do with this? I don't know, but maybe I can have fun with it. And I think that's just how Ram lives his life. His constant quest for entertainment and sadism. That too.
Sorry, my brain was just gone right to the finale. You say,
yeah,
how we get to where Ram ends up.
They're setting up all these mysteries and these intriguing questions with technos, and when the box is finally opened, you're like, what? Like, what the frick? You wasted 2 seasons of my life.
They didn't have anything in the box to start with, and then they just had all the mystery around it.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. I agree with you, Liz. That is intrinsically what the problem with all this mystery box writing is, when there's nothing inside the box. And that's why I hate it. I hate it. Because they kind of fit the narrative around what they want you to think is in the box. And then it's just, it does make you wonder if there had been the sort of forums that there are now, what the writing of the tribe would have been like. But it's quite scary if you think about it.
As a whole, I did enjoy this episode. I think it's the strongest so far. I love the character beats.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the best they've done so far. So hopefully it continues.
Come
on,
enjoy it.
Come on,
Enjoy this moment, Lance.
I am. I liked it.
I love your optimism.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just live in this moment, okay? This could all turn around next week, and likely will.
Yeah,
Who
but
knows?
to be fair though, we'd all misremembered season 3. Maybe we've all misremembered season 4. And it's actually never more like this.
Thompson, this dream of yours is never going to happen.
It's gotta stay alive, honey.
It seems to be happening so far.
Okay, no, that's not true, because...
One out of 2's not too bad. 1 out of 3.
One good episode does not a season make.
Yeah.
And I know I haven't misremembered this season so badly that I'm going to rediscover a complete love for it.
Wow, this is amazing.
I don't know. We all forgot how awful Pride was.
Yes. I didn't. I did not forget that the end of season 3 was bad. I didn't forget that season 3 fell off. I didn't forget that the writing got bad. Okay, that's why I knew from the beginning season 3 is where it tests my patience. You know what I mean? I didn't forget that Pride is a tool. I didn't forget these things. Maybe some specifics or how soon something happened, but I didn't forget, and I didn't forget how much I hate season 4, and that is never going to change, Thompson.
We'll see at the end of the season.
Yeah,
all I'm saying is I'll probably give it more credit than I thought I would, but it's not going to make me fall in love with this season. Okay,
I am creating the T-shirt that says Liz loves season 4.
Specific episode.
Episode 3. I specifically love episode 3.
That's as close as you're going to get, Tamsin.
Episode 3 is her favorite episode of the tribe ever.
I will endorse that Liz loves season 4, episode 3. 100%. Got me there.
It's coming soon, people.
I was actually nervous about going in to watch this. I won't lie, because last episode left such a bad taste in my mouth, and I was being so negative, and I didn't want to be. I'm trying to be objective. I'm not trying to push people away who like this, and I don't want to ruin it for them. And if I'm going to be negative, I'm trying to be at least comical in it so that you can be entertained. But I was nervous. I was like, I didn't want to watch this episode. And I'm just like, oh, okay, let's fire it up, right? and you guys had posted like, oh, I actually like this episode. I was like, don't get my hopes up, okay? Like, don't do this to me, you guys. Right? I'm like, okay, they were right. This is a good episode. Thank the Lord. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't false advertising. There's hope yet.
Just hold on to that. Hold on to that, because it can only get better.
Stop toying with my emotions. I'm so fragile right now.
Okay. Can it really get worse?
Mm-hmm. And on that note, that brings Series 4, Episode 3 to a close. Thank you very much to the panel, and you can show your support by clicking on that like and subscribe and following us on all the major platforms. You can also leave us a comment or get in touch if you'd like to take part in a future episode of the podcast yourself. Just search for thetribe.co.uk or Conversations on Eagle Mountain. You can also throw us a donation. Just head on over to buymeacoffee.com/thetribe.co.uk. And we'll see you next time for episode 4. Until then, bye.
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 Bye.